If you're the kind of person who freezes, overthinks, and dodges hard messages, this is for you. If you don't get some emotional control, you'll keep ruining nights, delaying decisions, and losing trust in yourself. Today I'll give you one rule and one line you can use in the exact moment anxiety hits. We'll use it in a real Friday night we need to talk text, where you'd normally spiral or snap. If that sounds like something you need, stay with me. You're staring at your phone again, thumb hovering over a message you should have replied to hours ago. Your Slack notifications keep pulsing in the corner of the screen, but instead of answering anything, you're frozen, replaying the same worried loop in your mind. The more you wait, the heavier your chest feels, and the harder it becomes to take even one clear step. What if the real issue isn't that you lack discipline, but that you've never been taught what to actually do in the first 10 seconds when anxiety takes over? What if the problem isn't the feeling itself, but the way you treat it like a stop sign instead of a starting point? Here's the truth, your anxiety isn't random. It shows up right when you're about to do something that matters. That email from your manager asking for an update. That payment reminder you've ignored for 2 days. That conversation you've been avoiding with someone you care about. These aren't small things, and every time you delay them, you're not only losing time, you're losing trust in yourself. You end another day feeling behind, guilty, frustrated, and convinced that tomorrow will magically be the day you finally get your life organized. But tomorrow keeps slipping away. The cost isn't just a missed task, it's the hit to your self-respect, the way your mind starts calling you unreliable, lazy, or overwhelmed when really you're just scared and stuck in the wrong story. Today, we're going to break that story. By the time we're done, you'll know how to shift anxiety into small, focused action in under 10 minutes. You'll know how to stop doom scrolling and start moving. You'll be able to reply to that message you've been avoiding, open the bill you didn't want to look at, and take one clear step on something meaningful, even while the nervous feeling is still there. And you'll walk away with specific, simple behaviors that help you build trust in yourself again. Educational content inspired by classical Stoic texts. Not medical, psychological, financial, or legal advice. If you want steady Stoic focus lessons on emotional control, boundaries, and relationships every week, this is the channel for you. Stay with me until the very end, and while you're here, hit like, tap subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. The way we're going to do this is simple. First, we're going to tear apart the belief that anxiety means stop. It doesn't. It means proceed with clarity. Next, we're going to show you the one shift that turns anxious spinning into decisive movement, even if you don't feel ready. Then we're going to look at how to create a tiny rule that protects your time and energy so you don't get pulled into emotional whirlpools all day. After that, we'll practice the line you'll use when someone else's pressure is making you freeze. And finally, we're going to put everything into a real story so you can see how it actually plays out when life gets messy. And here's something to keep in the back of your mind. Later in this lesson, we're going to walk through a Friday night moment where you're about to snap at someone you care about, and one small sentence saves the entire evening. I want you to see how powerful you can be when you act from clarity instead of panic. Here's the bigger truth underneath everything you're feeling right now. Anxiety becomes chaos only when you try to escape it. When you avoid the task, when you delay the response, when you try to numb the pressure by scrolling or distracting yourself, the feeling grows because you're feeding it silence and inaction. Stoic writers like Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He talked about the way the mind creates its own storms by running from what's right in front of us. The storm doesn't come from the task. It comes from believing your feelings are commands instead of signals. So today, we're flipping the meaning of that nervous signal. Instead of stop, it becomes prepare. Instead of freeze, it becomes focus. Instead of run, it becomes take the smallest possible step. You'll learn how to turn emotional tension into direction. You'll learn how to use fear as a compass instead of a cage. And the good news is, you don't have to feel calm to act. You don't have to wait for the perfect mindset. You don't even have to eliminate the anxiety. You just need to know how to move while it's there, how to take action that's so small your nervous system doesn't interpret it as danger, but meaningful enough that you feel the shift inside you. You've had days where you were stuck for hours, spinning in your head, only to take one tiny step and suddenly feel lighter. That wasn't a coincidence. That was your brain learning that you're not powerless. That's the muscle we're strengthening today. So as you settle into this, I want you to imagine what it would feel like to end today differently. Imagine closing your laptop having done the one thing you've been avoiding for a week. Imagine the relief of sending a message without replaying every possible negative outcome. Imagine falling asleep tonight without the buzzing fear that you're still behind. You don't need a new personality for that. You just need a new approach. We're going to build that together, starting now. And remember, keep an ear out for that later moment tonight when the tools you learn here stop an explosion before it starts. It's coming, and it might feel uncomfortably familiar, which is exactly why it's going to hit home. You'd be amazed how often your anxiety wins simply because the task you're facing is oversized in your mind. You tell yourself you need to finish the entire project, respond perfectly, solve everything at once, and of course your body freaks out. The claim here is simple: when you shrink a task down to something embarrassingly small, anxiety loses its leverage. And if you don't learn how to shrink tasks, you spend your days avoiding everything important because the emotional weight of do it all right now crushes you before you even begin. The reason this matters is straightforward. When a task feels too big, your brain treats it like a threat, not a responsibility. The stakes are real. If you keep letting your nervous system interpret every meaningful task as danger, you'll stay stuck in cycles of procrastination that look like laziness but are really fear in a different costume. You'll feel behind at work, guilty in your personal life, and ashamed of how much you're avoiding, not because you're incapable, but because you never learned how to make the task small enough that your body says, "Yeah, okay, I can do that." Here's why shrinking tasks works. Your brain reacts to scale. A giant, undefined task sets off the alarm bells. But a tiny, concrete step, something you could do in 60 seconds, drops the emotional temperature instantly. Behaviorally, you're creating what Stoics like Epictetus would call controllable action, something fully within your power. When you take a micro step, you teach your nervous system a new story: I can move even when I'm anxious. This is how a calmer, more focused version of you responds instead of reacting. You interrupt the belief that you must feel ready before you act. You show yourself that readiness is optional, but movement is possible. The microscript for this section is short enough to remember when you need it. What's the smallest version of this task I'm willing to do right now? Say it exactly like that. Not the best version, not the full version, but the smallest version. A version that feels almost silly because it's so small. That's the point. You're disarming the part of your brain that thinks danger is present. Let's put this in a real North American scene so you feel it. It's Tuesday morning. You've been avoiding an email from your manager asking for a progress update on something you haven't touched in days. You keep telling yourself you'll respond when you have the right words, but every time you open your inbox, your heart rate jumps and you click somewhere else. The old reaction is familiar. You avoid the email, distract yourself with social media, and start feeling worse as the hours go by. But today, you use the new response. You take a slow breath and say out loud, what's the smallest version of this task I'm willing to do right now? And you decide the smallest version isn't writing a full update. It's opening the email and reading it once without responding. That's it. You do that. And once you read it, the next smallest step becomes clear: draft one sentence. Not the whole message, one sentence. You write it. Then maybe you write the second. And before you know it, you've replied in under 10 minutes without forcing yourself into perfection. Your anxiety didn't disappear at first. You just didn't let it make decisions for you. Your tiny action for today is simple: pick one task that's been bothering you and shrink it down to a 1-minute version. That's the whole action. 1 minute. Maybe it's opening a bill. Maybe it's putting one dish in the sink. Maybe it's sending a single sentence reply. You're proving to yourself that small movement is more powerful than big intention. Right now, take a slow breath with me. In and out. And again. As you breathe, Bring to mind one thing you've been avoiding for more than 24 hours. Don't justify. Don't negotiate. Just notice it. Now quietly repeat the microscript once. What's the smallest version of this task I'm willing to do right now? Let your body feel the difference between the giant version and the tiny one. Your breath deepens because the pressure drops. That shift you're feeling, that's the whole point of this lesson. You're learning that anxiety doesn't need to change for you to move. You only need to change the size of the step. Hold on to this idea, because later in that Friday night moment I mentioned earlier, you're going to see the exact moment where shrinking the emotional task saves you from reacting in a way you'd regret. You know that moment when everything in you feels like it has to respond right now? Someone sends a sharp text, your boss pings you on Slack, or a partner asks a loaded question, and your whole body leaps forward before your mind has caught up. The claim for this section is simple: a 10-second pause, 10 quiet seconds of not reacting, can save you from an emotional spiral that would have cost you hours of stress, regret, cleanup, and self-judgment. Without this pause, you fall into the trap of urgency that anxiety manufactures. With it, you interrupt the momentum long enough to choose a response instead of firing back one you'll regret. The stakes are real. If you never build this 10-second pause, you'll keep losing control in the moments that matter most: conversations with people you love, deadlines that unexpectedly shift, messages that land wrong, bills that pop up when you're already overwhelmed. Your nervous system treats all of these as alarms, and if you let that alarm dictate your behavior, you'll react sharply, impulsively, or avoidant, and each of those reactions creates more problems than they solve. The pause isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about preventing your feelings from hijacking the wheel. Without it, you stay trapped in the same loops that convince you you're bad at handling stress, when the truth is you're just moving too fast to choose. Here's why the pause works. When something triggers you, your body surges with tension before the rational part of your mind comes online. In that first beat, everything feels like a threat. The 10-second pause gives your brain time to re-engage with reality instead of the story anxiety is spinning. Those 10 seconds allow your heart rate to drop just enough for clarity to return. You give your nervous system a small reset. You give yourself permission to breathe instead of attack or retreat. You step into what a calmer, more grounded version of you would do: slow down, observe, and respond with intention. It's not mystical. It's mechanical. And it works because the pause becomes a boundary between your initial emotion and your final action. The script for this section is short: I don't have to respond yet. Say it slowly, like you're reminding your own body that the world isn't on fire. You're breaking the illusion of urgency. When you say this line, it's not a delay tactic, it's a clarity tactic. It's you telling yourself that 10 seconds of space won't ruin anything, but reacting too quickly might. Let's walk through a North American example so you can feel what this looks like in real time. You're sitting at your desk on a Wednesday afternoon. You're already juggling tasks, and you get a Slack message from your manager: "Can we talk?" Something seems off with your last update. Instantly, your stomach drops. You feel the heat in your face. Your mind starts racing with worst-case scenarios. Did I mess up? Am I in trouble? What now? Your old reaction kicks in. You start hammering out a reply before you even understand what they mean. Maybe you apologize too quickly. Maybe you defend yourself too aggressively. Maybe you panic and over-explain. All of these options escalate the tension, not reduce it. But today, you try something different. The message comes in, you feel the shock in your body, and instead of typing anything, you silently say, "I don't have to respond yet." You lift your hands off the keyboard. You take 10 seconds. In those seconds, you breathe once, slow in, slow out. Your chest loosens. Your mind clears just enough to see that the message wasn't even an accusation, it was an invitation to clarify. You respond with a calm version of yourself instead of the panicked one: "Sure, I'm available. What would you like to review?" The conversation that follows is smoother, clearer, and far less emotional because you didn't let the initial surge control you. 10 seconds saved you from hours of anxiety and damage control. Your tiny action today is this: Pick one conversation, text, Slack, email, anything, and practice the 10-second pause before you respond. You're not ignoring the message. You're reclaiming your agency. 10 seconds is enough to change the tone of your reply and the trajectory of the interaction. Right now, try a slow practice moment with me. Put your phone face down or your hand still for a moment. Imagine a situation this week where you reacted too quickly and wished you could take it back. See the message pop up. Feel the emotional charge. And now, instead of responding, whisper once, "I don't have to respond yet." Take a breath in and out. Count to 10 at a pace that feels natural to your body. Notice how your muscles soften. Notice how the story in your head shifts. This is the reset your nervous system has been looking for, not silence, not avoidance, just space. The 10-second pause isn't meant to make you passive. It's meant to make you intentional. It puts you back in alignment with something Marcus Aurelius wrote about observing your first impression before accepting it. The first impression is noisy, emotional, and impulsive. The second impression, the one that comes after space, is where clarity lives. You're not fighting the feeling. You're letting it pass through without letting it speak for you. And here's something to keep in mind. This pause is going to matter later when we get to that Friday night example. There's a moment in that story where your old reaction would have escalated a harmless misunderstanding into a full argument. The pause is what prevents it from spinning out. When you see it happen, you'll understand just how much power you've been handing over to urgency, and how much calmer your life becomes when you slow that urgency down. You're training your brain today. 10 seconds at a time. There's a moment in almost every stressful interaction where you stop thinking about what you want to say and start reacting to the pressure coming from someone else. It could be a partner asking why you didn't reply sooner, a coworker pushing you for an immediate answer, or a family member assuming you're available just because they need something. The claim for this section is direct. One grounding sentence, one line you say to yourself, can keep you from getting dragged into someone else's emotional tempo. Without this sentence, you will react to their pressure instead of responding to the situation. With it, you put your mind back in your own body and regain the ability to choose. And the stakes couldn't be higher. If you don't learn how to ground yourself when someone pushes you, your day stops being yours. You will shape your tone, your decisions, and your energy around what someone else wants in that moment, not around what actually makes sense for you. You'll say yes when you mean no. You'll apologize for things that don't require apologies. You'll rush responses that would have been better if you took time. You'll feel drained, resentful, stretched thin, and confused about why you keep losing your center. This grounding sentence is the hinge between living in reaction to external pressure and living with internal clarity. Here's why the grounding sentence works. When someone else is stressed or urgent, your nervous system mirrors them. It's automatic. Their emotional speed becomes your emotional speed. Their tension becomes your tension. If you don't interrupt that mirror, you'll escalate with them. But when you use one grounding sentence, you create a moment of separation between their emotion and your action. You claim your own pace back. Stoics understood this deeply. They believed you always have the power to choose how you interpret an impression. The grounding line is your way of saying, "I hear the pressure, but I choose my response." This is how a calmer, more focused version of you acts, not by fighting people, but by staying rooted. The microscript for this section is simple. Their urgency isn't my urgency. You can say it silently or under your breath. It immediately signals to your nervous system that you're allowed to slow down. You're allowed to think. You're allowed to respond on your own timeline instead of being whipped around by someone else's intensity. Let's walk through a North American example so you feel how this plays out. It's Saturday morning. You were planning to rest, maybe run a few errands, and enjoy a quiet start. Then your phone buzzes. It's your coworker, texting, "Hey, can you send me that report from Thursday? I need it ASAP." No greeting. No context. Just pressure. You feel that old familiar spike. You weren't planning to work today, but suddenly you're scrambling. You feel guilty, then annoyed, then ashamed for being annoyed. Your old reaction kicks in, you drop everything, start digging through files, and reply within minutes, even though your free day just got disrupted. But today, you try something different. The text comes in, and before you even tap the screen, you pause and whisper, "Their urgency isn't my urgency." Immediately, something in you steadies. You realize nothing in this message indicates you must respond right now. It's their timeline, not yours. You take 10 seconds. You breathe once. Then you reply calmly, "I can send it later today when I'm back at my laptop." You didn't explain. You didn't apologize. You didn't match their intensity. You just anchored yourself and responded from a grounded place. And instead of losing your whole morning to someone else's pressure, you continue your day as planned. Your tiny action for today is this: the next time someone pushes you, text, call, Slack, email, anything, say the grounding sentence once before you respond. You're not ignoring the person. You're refusing to adopt their emotional speed as your own. You're resetting your center before you choose your next move. Let's do a slow practice moment. Think about the last time someone made you feel rushed or cornered. Maybe it was someone at work demanding an immediate answer. Maybe it was a partner wanting to resolve something right now when you weren't ready. Maybe it was a friend asking for a favor before you could think. Hold that moment in your mind. Feel the pressure in your chest, shoulders, or throat. And now, say quietly, "Their urgency isn't my urgency." Take one slow breath. Notice what shifts. The tension loosens. The pressure separates from your sense of responsibility. This sentence doesn't dismiss other people, it protects your ability to stay present without getting swept away. This grounding line becomes even more powerful when paired with the 10-second pause we practiced earlier. First, you interrupt the emotional momentum. Then you remind yourself that you're not required to match someone else's speed. When these tools work together, they give you a kind of internal insulation that keeps other people's stress from controlling your behavior. And in a bit, when we get to that Friday night story I teased at the beginning, you'll see exactly how this grounding sentence prevents a misunderstanding from turning into a full-blown argument. There's a moment where you're being pushed emotionally, and your old instinct would have been to snap, defend, or hurry. But the grounding sentence changes everything in that moment. It's small, but the effect is huge. You're learning right now to stay in your own lane emotionally. Not by shutting down. Not by withdrawing. But by remembering that pressure from others doesn't equal obligation for you. You don't have to carry their urgency. You don't have to speak on their timetable. You don't have to rush because they're rushing. You're allowed to slow the moment down, breathe, and respond with clarity. 10 seconds and one sentence can shift the entire energy of a conversation. You're building a new reflex right now. And soon, it will feel natural. There's a pattern you've probably noticed in your life. The moment a message comes in, text, Slack, email, DM, you feel an immediate pull to respond. It's automatic, almost like a reflex. You don't think about whether you have the energy, the clarity, or even the desire to reply right then. You just react. The claim for this section is simple: establishing a reply window, your own chosen time frame for when you answer messages, will break that reflex and give you back control over your emotional energy. Without this, you'll always live in reaction mode. With it, you move on your terms. The stakes are significant. If you keep responding whenever anxiety tells you to, you reinforce the belief that other people's expectations dictate your behavior. You'll never feel caught up. You'll feel like your time is owned by every ping and vibration. You'll get pulled into conversations that drain you, arguments you weren't ready for, and responsibilities you didn't choose. It can take hours to calm down after a reactive reply. And the real cost is deeper. Every time you react instantly, you teach yourself that your internal state doesn't matter. A reply window restores your boundaries and your dignity. Here's why reply windows work. When you set a clear time frame, say, "I reply to most messages within an hour," or "I check email twice a day," you create structure. Structure removes uncertainty. It tells your nervous system that you are not ignoring things, you are managing them. Anxiety hates ambiguity. But when you have a rule, you replace ambiguity with clarity. You're not delaying because you're scared. You're delaying because this is the system. And your brain willingly cooperates with the system. This is how a calmer, more organized version of you behaves, not with avoidance, and not with reactivity, but with intentional pacing. The microscript for this section is one you'll use often: I reply within my window. Say it to yourself when you feel the urge to grab your phone immediately. It reminds you that your job isn't to satisfy a sudden spike of urgency, it's to follow the rule you've chosen for your own peace. Let's put this into a real North American scenario so you can feel the difference. It's Monday afternoon. You're in the middle of working on something that actually requires concentration, maybe a report, maybe billing, maybe a proposal. Then your phone lights up. A friend texts, "Hey, can you talk real quick? I need your advice." You care about this person, but you feel that old internal jolt. The guilt comes immediately: if I don't respond right away, they'll think I don't care. You pick up the phone, type half a reply, delete it, type again, and now you're irritated, at yourself, at the distraction, at the pressure. The task you were doing is now broken. And the worst part? You weren't ready to talk, and your tone probably showed it. Now imagine the new response. Your phone lights up. You feel the emotional pull. But instead of reacting, you say silently, "I reply within my window." Your window might be 30 minutes, or an hour, or whatever makes sense for your life. You continue working. When your window arrives, you check your messages and respond, "I'm tied up right now, but I can talk later this evening. Is that okay?" Suddenly, everything is calmer. You're not being rude. You're not ignoring them. You're not abandoning your work. You're pacing your life intentionally. And the person on the other side usually responds with something like, "Sure, no problem." This simple rule protects both your focus and your emotional stability. Your tiny action for today is this: choose a reply window for just one category of communication. It could be texts, email, or Slack. Pick one. Maybe it's I check email at 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. or I reply to texts every hour unless it's urgent. Make the rule small and doable. You don't need a perfect system. You just need one rule that helps you stop reacting instantly. Let's build a slow practice moment together. Sit still for a moment and think of the last time a message dragged you out of your mental space. Maybe it was a message during dinner. Maybe during work. Maybe right before bed. Picture the moment. Feel the emotional yank in your stomach or chest. Now say softly, "I reply within my window." Then take one deep breath in and out. Feel the difference between your body's knee-jerk reaction and the calmer version of you who follows a clear rule. Breathe again. The pressure loosens. The urgency fades. Your internal pace returns. This reply window idea also works beautifully with the grounding sentence from the previous section. When someone else pushes you, your grounding line reminds you that their urgency isn't yours. Then your reply window gives you a practical system to support that. You're not just resisting pressure, you're organizing your life so pressure has fewer places to stick to you. And soon, in the Friday night moment we'll explore later, you'll see how reply windows prevent a situation from escalating into an argument. There's a point in that story where someone wants an immediate emotional conversation. Your old pattern would have been to jump in, even though you weren't ready. The reply window allows you to pace the moment instead of letting it consume you. You're creating breathing room in your life. You're creating structure around your emotional responses. And you're doing it without avoiding people, without delaying out of fear, and without withdrawing. You're simply choosing when you engage, so you show up as your clearest self instead of your most overwhelmed self. You don't have to live inside the demands of every notification. You don't have to be instantly available. You don't have to justify taking time to breathe. You're allowed to set the tempo. You're allowed to protect your energy. And every time you practice your reply window, you reinforce the identity of someone who moves with intention, not reactivity. Your time and your inner life are yours again. You've probably had days where you kept telling yourself, I'll start once I feel calmer, or I'll do it when my mind settles down. But the calm never came. The claim for this section is straightforward. If you wait to feel perfectly centered before you act, you'll stall your entire life. The shift you need is learning to move while the nervous feeling is still buzzing inside you. Not after it goes away. Not after you feel ready. Right alongside it. This is how you break the cycle where anxiety dictates your timing, your decisions, and your progress. The stakes are huge. If you keep waiting to feel calm first, entire weeks slip by. Tasks pile up. Conversations get avoided. Decisions linger until they become problems. You start feeling ashamed for not moving, even though the real issue is that you were waiting for a state your body was never designed to give you on command. Calm is not the prerequisite for action, it's the byproduct. If you chase the feeling, you'll get stuck. If you act through the feeling, the nervous energy begins to loosen its grip. And if you never learn this shift, you'll keep interpreting anxiety as a stop sign instead of a background noise you can walk with. Here's why acting with the feeling works. Anxiety is energy. It's your body preparing you to do something, not telling you to avoid it. When you start a small action while still feeling nervous, you teach your brain a new association. We can move safely even when our body feels tense. Over time, the nervous signal becomes less of a threat and more of a familiar hum in the background. This is exactly the kind of internal training Stoics relied on, exposing themselves to discomfort in controlled ways to build resilience. You're not fighting the feeling. You're letting it ride shotgun while you stay in the driver's seat. That's where your power is. The microscript for this section is one line: I can move even while I'm nervous. It names the truth your body forgets. You're not broken for feeling tense. You're not behind. You're not failing. You're just a human with energy in your system, and you get to move anyway. Let's bring this into a North American moment so you can feel how this works in real life. Picture this: it's Thursday morning. You've been dreading a phone call to schedule a dentist appointment you've been avoiding for months. It's small, but anxiety doesn't care. Your chest tightens, your stomach sinks, and your brain starts producing excuses. I'll do it after lunch. Actually, after work. Maybe tomorrow. You distract yourself with emails, chores, scrolling, anything to avoid that nervous jolt. Now imagine the new version of this scene. You still feel the spike of anxiety, but instead of treating it as a stop sign, you whisper, I can move even while I'm nervous. You don't wait for calm. You don't wait for readiness. You take one breath, pick up your phone, and dial. Your hands feel a little shaky. Your voice feels a little tight. You make the call anyway. And here's the part your brain always forgets. Once you start talking, the tension drops because you've stepped out of the anticipation loop and into reality. The call is over in 90 seconds. The weight you've carried for months dissolves. The calm came after the action, not before. Your tiny action for today is this: choose one small task that makes you nervous and do it within the next 10 minutes without waiting for your body to settle. It can be sending a message, opening a bill, requesting time off, updating a document, anything that triggers hesitation. The point isn't to feel strong or confident. The point is to move with the feeling still there. Let's slow down for a moment and practice this together. Sit comfortably. Let your shoulders relax a little. Bring to mind something you've been avoiding, not a massive thing, just a small one that makes you uneasy. Notice where the anxiety lives in your body, your chest, your throat, your stomach. Don't try to make it disappear. Just feel it. And now repeat with me, softly, I can move even while I'm nervous. Take a breath in, hold for just a moment, and release. Say the line again, slower this time, I can move even while I'm nervous. Your body learns through repetition. Your nervous system calms when it sees you acting despite the tension, not in the absence of it. The ability to act with anxiety is one of the most liberating emotional skills you'll ever learn. It frees you from waiting for the perfect moment. It frees you from the myth that readiness determines effectiveness. And it frees you from the guilt and shame that build up when you don't move. You don't have to eliminate fear to make a phone call. You don't need to feel courageous to send a message. You don't need to silence the internal noise to open your laptop. You just need one sentence and one small action. This idea pairs beautifully with everything we've built so far. Shrinking the task makes movement easier. The 10-second pause gives you space to choose. The grounding sentence protects you from external pressure. The reply window gives you structure. And this section gives you the internal skill of moving while you're uncomfortable. Together, these tools create a chain of emotional freedom. You're no longer trapped waiting for conditions to improve. You're no longer postponing your life until you feel differently. You're acting now. And later, when we reach that Friday night moment I've been hinting at, you'll see this exact idea play out at a critical moment. There's a point where you feel a surge of emotion, tension, fear, frustration, and your old pattern would have been to shut down or lash out. But instead, you'll move with the feeling. You'll say one line. You'll take one step. And that tiny moment changes the entire conversation. You're learning how to live alongside your nerves instead of losing your life to them. You're learning how to act in the real world, not the world where you feel perfect, but the world where you feel human. This is what emotional control actually looks like. Not the absence of anxiety, but mastery of your choices even when anxiety is present. You're becoming someone who moves anyway. There's a moment you know too well. Your mind starts looping a thought, something you said, something someone else said, something that might happen, something you can't fix right now, and the loop tightens until you feel trapped in your own head. The claim for this section is simple but powerful. A physical grounding action can interrupt that mental loop faster than trying to think your way out of it. When your brain is spiraling, your body becomes the way out. And if you don't learn to ground yourself physically, your thoughts will keep hijacking your attention, draining your energy, and convincing you that problems are bigger than they are. The stakes for this are real. Looping thoughts don't just waste time, they distort your sense of reality. They make small issues feel enormous. They turn neutral messages into threats. They keep you up at night replaying conversations you can't change. They pull you away from tasks, relationships, and rest, and they leave you feeling drained, scattered, and ashamed for not being able to just stop thinking about it. But this isn't a willpower problem. It's a regulation problem. And grounding is how you regulate. Without grounding, you stay stuck in the loop. With grounding, you give your nervous system something else to anchor to, something steady and immediate, and the loop finally breaks. Here's why grounding works. When your mind starts spiraling, your body interprets the thoughts as danger. Your heart rate speeds up, your breath shortens, and your nervous system prepares for a threat that isn't actually present. Grounding interrupts this by giving your brain a physical signal of safety. When you direct your attention to the feeling of your feet on the floor, or the temperature of the air, or the slow release of your breath, you pull your mind out of imagined scenarios and into the present moment. It's a pattern break. It stops the loop not by solving the problem but by reducing the physiological urgency behind it. This is exactly what a calmer version of you does, anchor in something real instead of fighting a storm that only exists in thoughts. The microscript for this section is simple: come back to your body. You say it once, quietly, when you feel the spiral beginning. It reminds you that the mind doesn't have to lead the moment. The body can lead instead. Now let's put this into a North American moment so you can see it clearly. It's late evening. You're sitting on your couch, trying to relax after a long day, but your brain won't let you. You keep replaying a comment your coworker made during a meeting, something like, "I thought you'd have had this done already." It wasn't even harsh, but your mind grabs it and spins it into a dozen anxious interpretations. Did they mean I'm falling behind? Are people losing confidence in me? What else are they thinking? The loop tightens, your chest gets heavy, and you start scrolling through emails to see if you missed something. The night slips away, not because anything is actually wrong, but because the thought spiral convinced you it might be. Now imagine the grounded version of this moment. You feel the spiral starting, but instead of trying to analyze your way out of it, you whisper, "Come back to your body." You place both feet flat on the floor. You push them gently into the carpet or hardwood. You feel the weight of your legs. You let your shoulders drop slightly. You take one slow breath, deep and steady. Your mind tries to jump back to the thought, but you redirect your focus to the sensation of your breath leaving your nose. Just that. One physical anchor. After a few breaths, the urgency fades. The loop quiets. The thought is still there, but it's just a thought now, not a threat, not a judgment, not a crisis. You reclaimed your night. Your tiny action for today is simple. Choose one grounding move you'll use every time your thoughts start looping. It could be placing your feet firmly on the floor, touching a cold object like a metal water bottle, pressing your palm to your chest, or taking one slow inhale and slower exhale. Pick one and use it once today, at the first sign of a spiral. Let's take a slow practice moment together so you can feel this in your body instead of just understanding it intellectually. Sit comfortably, or whatever position you're in right now. Pause your thoughts for a moment. Bring your attention to the contact between your feet and the ground. Feel the pressure there. Notice the weight of your body. Now take a slow breath in, hold for half a second, and breathe out. While you do this, say softly in your mind, come back to your body. Again, breath in, breath out. Notice how your shoulders lower without you trying. Notice how the mental noise softens just a little. You're experiencing the shift firsthand. You're learning the pathway out of spirals. The more you practice grounding, the faster your brain learns the pattern. At first it might take several breaths. Then it takes one. Eventually, the grounding becomes the trigger for clarity. Thoughts lose their sharp edges. Anxiety loses its authority. You stop believing every feeling is a signal that something terrible is happening. You start experiencing thoughts as just thoughts. That's the freedom grounding gives you. This idea fits cleanly with everything we've built so far. Shrinking the task helps you move. The 10-second pause gives you space before reacting. The grounding sentence keeps you from adopting someone else's urgency. The reply window protects your time. Acting while nervous helps you stay in motion. And grounding gives you the physical mechanism to stop spirals before they consume your entire day. This is how you rebuild emotional control, piece by piece, moment by moment, and sensation by sensation. And later, in that Friday night moment we're moving toward, grounding becomes the difference between escalating a misunderstanding and staying present with someone you care about. There's a point in that story where your mind tries to run ahead into assumptions, fears, and imagined outcomes. But grounding pulls you back into the room, back into your breath, back into the moment where connection and clarity are still possible. You're learning how to return to yourself. Not by force. Not by suppression. But by anchoring in something real. Your body is your doorway back to presence. And when you use it, the loop finally breaks. You're becoming someone who can interrupt their own spirals. Someone who can calm themselves without shutting down. Someone who can stay in the moment even when their mind is trying to escape it. And that's emotional power. There's a silent force that drains more of your emotional energy than you realize: constant decisions. Every morning you wake up and navigate 100 tiny choices: when to answer messages, what to prioritize, what to ignore, how to respond when someone pulls your attention away. The claim for this section is simple: creating one personal rule for the day protects your attention from getting scattered. One rule reduces decision fatigue, lowers anxiety, and keeps you focused on what actually matters. Without a personal rule, you spend your day reacting to everything that comes your way. With a personal rule, you create a structure that your mind can lean on. The stakes are real. If you wake up without a rule, the world decides your day for you. Notifications drag you off course. Other people's needs come first. Your own intentions get pushed aside. You feel busy but unfocused, tired but unproductive, and frustrated even though you've been on all day. Decision fatigue builds quietly. You start making emotional choices instead of intentional ones, saying yes because you're too tired to say no, replying instantly because it feels easier, avoiding tasks because you've drained your mental resources too early. But one small rule cuts through the noise. It gives your mind a clear boundary line so you don't have to negotiate every moment. Here's why a personal rule works. Your brain loves patterns. It relaxes when it knows what to expect. A single rule removes ambiguity and tells your nervous system, this is how we operate today. That clarity lowers emotional friction. You don't have to ask yourself every hour what to do, you're following the rule. Stoics use daily principles for the same reason. One guiding line creates stability. You shift from emotional guessing to grounded behavior. And this is what a calmer, more focused version of you does: set a simple expectation and follow it. The microscript for this section is one line you say to yourself in the morning: this is my rule today. You speak it once before naming the rule. It signals commitment. It brings your mind into alignment. And it reminds you that you're not drifting, you're directing. Let's walk through a North American example so you can feel the difference this makes. It's a typical weekday. You wake up already feeling behind. You check your phone before you even get out of bed: texts, emails, notifications. Half of them need something. Before your feet touch the floor, your attention has been hijacked. You rush through your routine, your mind fragmented. By noon, you've answered messages all morning but made almost no progress on the work that actually matters. You feel pulled, scattered, and irritated with yourself. This is the cost of having no rule. Now imagine the new version of this morning. You wake up, and before the noise hits you, you say, this is my rule today. And the rule you choose is simple: no checking messages until 10 a.m. That's it. One rule. Throughout the morning, you feel the urge to peek, but the rule gives you something solid to stand on. You pour your energy into the one thing you plan to start your day with instead of reacting to notifications. At 10 a.m., when you finally check your messages, the difference is huge. You're calmer, clearer, and not racing from the moment you wake up. Your rule could be anything: no social media until after lunch. One thing at a time. No yes, without checking my schedule first. No work after 8 p.m. It's not about perfection. It's about direction. Your tiny action for today is this: choose one personal rule for the next 24 hours. Make it small, realistic, and meaningful. Write it down if you need to. Say it out loud once. Then follow it as best as you can. The rule isn't a punishment, it's protection. Let's build a slow practice moment so you can feel how grounding a rule actually is. Sit for a moment and notice your body. Let your shoulders drop. Take one slow breath in and out. Now quietly say to yourself, this is my rule today. Let that sentence settle. Think about one place in your life where your attention feels scattered. Maybe it's your phone. Maybe it's people asking for too much. Maybe it's your own habit of multitasking until you're exhausted. Pick one situation. Just one. Now let a simple rule rise to the surface, something that would protect your attention in that moment. Hold the rule in your mind. And say the grounding line again: this is my rule today. Breathe once. Feel the clarity. Feel the steadiness. This small act organizes your internal world. The beauty of daily rules is that they stack with everything we've built so far. Shrinking the task keeps you moving. The 10-second pause gives you space before reacting. The grounding sentence keeps you from absorbing other people's urgency. The reply window sets the tempo of your communication. Acting with nervousness keeps you from stalling. Physical grounding breaks the spiral. And your personal rule ties all of these together by protecting the focus you've worked so hard to build. It becomes your guardrail. This rule becomes even more important when we enter the Friday night story soon. There's a moment where you feel emotional pressure building. Your instinct is to respond instantly, to solve everything at once. But your personal rule, chosen earlier that day, becomes the quiet anchor that stops the spiral from escalating. It keeps you from over-explaining, overreacting, or rushing the moment. You stay grounded because you gave yourself a clear boundary. You're learning how to protect your attention, how to give your mind fewer decisions, fewer reactions, and fewer crises to manage. You're learning how to create small structures that make big emotional changes possible. With one rule a day, you become someone who moves intentionally instead of reactively. Someone who has mental room to breathe. Someone who operates from clarity instead of chaos. And that's the kind of emotional control most people never learn, not because it's complicated, but because they never try something this simple. You're building that skill right now. One rule at a time. It's Friday night. You're finally home after a long week, and all you want is a quiet evening. You set your phone on the counter, heat up leftovers, and put on a show. For the first time all day, you feel your shoulders drop. Then your phone buzzes. It's someone you care about, a partner, maybe, or a close friend, sending a message that lands with more weight than you expected. We need to talk. I didn't love how today went. Instantly, your chest tightens. This is the moment from earlier, the one I told you we'd come back to. You feel the emotional surge hit you hard. Your old pattern shows up immediately. Your mind jumps to disaster mode, replaying the day, trying to guess what the problem is, and imagining everything you might have done wrong. The nervous loop starts tightening, and before you know it, your thumb is already hovering over the keyboard. You want to respond right now, not because you know what to say, but because you're scared of what waiting might mean. But tonight is different. Tonight, you have tools. The first wave of panic hits, and instead of typing, you whisper the simplest sentence from earlier, I don't have to respond yet. You place the phone down, face down, on the counter. The 10-second pause begins. You're not ignoring the message. You're interrupting the emotional momentum. 10 seconds of slow breathing. In, out. Your heart is still beating fast, but the feeling of drowning starts to ease. As those 10 seconds pass, the second layer of pressure shows up. You hear the tone of the message in your mind and start absorbing their urgency as your own. You feel the pull to fix everything immediately. But then you use the grounding sentence from before, their urgency isn't my urgency. You feel your body settle 1 degree at a time. You're not being attacked. You're not in danger. You're not required to solve anything in the next 30 seconds. Your pace is still yours. Then the spiraling thoughts try to take over. You imagine the conversation going badly, imagine tension spreading through the whole weekend, and imagine the relationship cracking. This is where the third tool appears almost automatically. Come back to your body. You let your feet rest on the kitchen tile. You feel the coolness of the floor. You breathe once, slowly. You touch the edge of the counter. The loop softens. You're no longer lost in imagined scenarios. You're right here, in your kitchen, safe, breathing, present. Now you're ready to look at the message again. Not from fear. From clarity. You pick up the phone, open the text, and reread it. It's short, tense, but not catastrophic. You can see that your first interpretation, panic, was a story your mind created, not an actual threat. You shrink the emotional task the same way we practiced earlier. You don't have to fix the entire conversation. You don't have to resolve anything tonight. The smallest version of the task is choosing a calm, clear first step. You decide to use your reply window. Your rule for the day was no emotionally heavy conversations after 9 p.m. It's 9:27. So you honor it. You respond inside your chosen window, not inside your fear. You type a single, grounded sentence, I hear you, and I want to talk about this with a clear mind. Can we connect tomorrow morning? You breathe before hitting send. It feels unfamiliar, calm, measured, adult, but right. You put the phone down. The silence after sending the message feels scary for a moment, but it doesn't consume you. You take another breath. You feel the weight of your feet again. Your body understands what your mind is still learning. You're allowed to pace emotional moments. A few minutes later, the reply comes in, yeah, that's fine. Let's talk tomorrow. It's softer than you expected. The crisis your mind predicted dissolves instantly because there never was one. You didn't escalate. You didn't apologize out of panic. You didn't rush into a conversation you weren't ready for. You protected both yourself and the relationship. And for the first time in a long time, you feel something new, self-respect. You made a decision from clarity, not fear. You acted with the nervous feeling still present, but you acted intentionally anyway. Later that night, as you settle onto the couch again, you notice something. The tension in your chest is gone. Your thoughts aren't spiraling. You didn't lose the evening to anxiety. You didn't snap, you didn't withdraw, and you didn't perform emotional labor you weren't prepared for. That's the power of these tools in real life. 10 seconds of pause. One grounding sentence. A reply window. A physical anchor. Shrinking the emotional task. Acting while nervous. A personal rule. All of them work together quietly, seamlessly, helping you stay in control of a moment that once would have overwhelmed you. Before you end the night, you place one hand on your chest and take a slow breath. In and out. You whisper the sentence that carried you through the moment, I can move even while I'm nervous. Then you sit for a few quiet seconds, feeling your body settle. This is emotional control in action. Not perfection. Not silence. Not detachment. Just steady, intentional movement through a moment that once pulled you under. You didn't avoid the conversation. You didn't escalate it. You paced it. And now, you get your evening back. At the heart of everything we covered tonight is a simple truth. Emotional control isn't about eliminating anxiety, it's about learning to respond instead of react. It's the difference between letting your nervous system run the moment and choosing how you want to show up in it. Tonight was really about shifting from mindless urgency to intentional action, from spiraling thoughts to grounded presence, from waiting to feel calm to moving even while nervous. First, we started with the real problem, the way anxiety keeps you frozen, scrolling, avoiding, and losing trust in yourself. Next, we broke down how shrinking a task makes movement easier, even when the feeling is still strong. Then we introduced the 10-second pause to stop emotional momentum before it becomes a spiral. After that, you learned how one grounding sentence can pull you out of other people's urgency so you stop absorbing their stress as your own. From there, you saw how a reply window protects your attention and keeps you from reacting instantly. Then we built the skill of acting while nervous rather than waiting for calm. After that, grounding through the body helped you break looping thoughts and return to the present. And finally, we used one personal rule to protect your focus and reduce the decision fatigue that drains your clarity. To bring it all together, you walked through a real Friday night moment where these tools saved you from a reaction that would have caused stress, conflict, and regret. Now that you've seen these ideas in action, here are 3 things you can do today to lock them in. First, choose a single task you've been avoiding and shrink it to the smallest possible version. 60 seconds of movement is enough to change your momentum. Second, before responding to any emotionally loaded message, use the line, I don't have to respond yet, and give yourself at least 10 seconds. Third, set one personal rule for the next 24 hours that protects your attention, even if it's as simple as no checking messages before breakfast. If this resonated with you, the next lesson you'll want to explore is the one on building emotional boundaries, especially how to protect your time and energy when people around you are stressed or demanding. Think of it as the natural next step after learning to act with clarity instead of urgency. If you want a whole library of Stoic Focus lessons on emotional control, boundaries, and relationships, this is what we do here every week. If you feel messages like this need to reach more people, hit like, tap subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.